Hey everybody, welcome to Bitwig Rack Building 101. I'm Chimmy. I like to make music, and I'm really enjoying making up these various devices inside of Bitwig. And I'm not even talking about the grid. I'm just talking about just like regular like like instrument layers and audio effect layers and selectors. In Ableton, they call it instrument rack and audio effect rack. Since I come from Ableton, I'm always kind of interchanging using the Ableton terminology. But yeah, I do mean like instrument layer, audio effect layer, but I just use the term rack just because that's what I'm used to. I just want to before we get started, kind of demonstrate why it's so good, it's so convenient to make these devices while you're kind of producing music. To demonstrate, I've got like a little example rack ready. I'm just going to play you this like MIDI that I wrote for a song ages back. Yeah, so it's just coming through FM4, very like nothing special, right? And so I'm just dragging that MIDI into an example rack that I've made earlier. So and it's the exact same MIDI, obviously. Apologies, the video recording actually stopped. I think it's because I added like a new rack that I'd previously made into the project, and like just loading it up was like too much for my computer to handle. That was this one, by the way. So it's like a percussion rack that I made. And it is important to note that it's best to keep these racks simple. They can be very complicated, but you can make them as complicated as basically your only limitation will be the CPU and memory, how well your computer can perform. However, personally, from experience, I think it's best to keep them kind of simple-ish, less is more type thing. To get started, let's just add in a piano, right? So just press the little plus button, type piano, and look for, let's add grand piano. Let's close the macros off, and let's just put a reverb. We'll put convolution on, right? And just quickly, we'll just play our little chord progression. Yeah, I just want to put the effect on just to demonstrate how to nest devices together, because as you may know, we can nest the effect simply just on the right of it, and there's a difference having it in here. Say if we were to do a bounce in place, if you know what that is, basically it'll turn this into audio, right? But there's like bounce in place, and then there's just regular bounce. And bounce in place means that this turns into a hybrid track, meaning it can support audio and MIDI. But so if the effects that are nested in this little area will actually go into the bounce in place, they'll be burnt into the audio clip, right? Whereas the effects on the outside, if I was to do a bounce in place here, and because the convolution's outside of it, if I bounced in place, you can see the waveform looks different too. So actually, this convolution, if I turn this off, it'll just Yeah, so there is that difference, and it's important to make that distinction. You can hear the convolution bounce in this one, but if we want to hear the convolution in this one, since it wasn't nested in this little thing, we'd have to turn it on. If you're new to Bitwig, don't worry too much about that. I would recommend, though, if you are new to Bitwig, just keep that in the back of your head and don't put effects into here, since it's collapsible and you can easily, like, if you put something in there and accidentally collapse it, you're like, oh, what's that thing? Where'd that thing go? Like, that's making that horrible sound. Right, so anyway, back to making the rack. When you have like your first instrument and a couple of effects or whatnot, like the first thing you got to do is just select all of them by just selecting one of them and then hitting Control A or holding Control and just like, right? And then you just want to hit Control G. So that will put it into, yeah, so if you right click something and it says Control G to group. So yeah, we're grouping it, right? So it's Control G, right? And then it's going to put it into this, what we call instrument layer, right? So we got our first layer, a piano with some chorus and reverb, right? And it's important to get into the habit of just naming things and coloring them. And coloring is good because when we add the color, it kind of tells us where we are, like in the rack, once it gets more complicated. Now let's add something else. So we can hit this plus button and let's go for strings, right? So we have the stock Bitwig strings are very nice. Let's use them. So we've got that, and so now we have grand piano and strings. Let's give the strings a kind of different color so it's very obvious. Let's get rid of that actually. So now we've got and so we got a mute and solo button on these if we need to mute any layers. So now is the tricky part, right? So we have two layers, one strings, one piano. And so what if we want like one layer to be like arpeggiating while one layer just remains playing the chords as is, right? So we have note effects devices, or if you're Ableton user, like MIDI effects, right? So we can put an arpeggiator, and my one by default is a little weird. So I'm just going to fix that. And so yeah, our arpeggiator, so our note effects go before, you know, the instrument devices. So like the chain is always like MIDI, instrument, and then after the instrument in the chain on the right hand side of the instrument go the audio effects. So MIDI and note effects go before, right? So, but what if we want, so let's hear what this sounds like anyway. So I have them both muted. Right? Lovely. But what if I want the piano to arpeggiate, but not the string? So we have two layers. The correct way to do this is, well, you can hit the plus button here, but you can also just click this, drag it into this. So now let's hear it. All right, so yeah, basic, like, you know, layering. So what if we want to add some controls in that, you know, what if I want to press a button on my keyboard and tell the piano to, you know, play a different, you know, higher or different kind of like at different rates, right? So what we can do is we can create a button, and this button, let's actually create a few buttons, right? So fastest way to do this, we can click the button. So you can notice we can select these little spaces. We click the button, we hold Control, and then we kind of hold Control. While holding Control, we drag to an empty slot. And there we go. We've got button 1, 2, and 3. So if we press the little I thing, or press the I key on our keyboard, we bring up our inspector. And in our inspector, let's type in up. And then on the other two, we can type in, actually, let's put like, sorry. Let's actually keep that, but we're gonna type in here. We're gonna type macro 4. Okay, so we got macro 4. So not to be confused with just regular macros. We got macro knob. We want macro 4, but keep a regular macro there just for now anyway. Right, so we got these things, right? And we got, and let's use this up button. It's going to be like our master arpeggiating button. So, right, and it's important to note, however, so when you're setting like routing, like macros and stuff, okay, so we can go up, which is going to give us like a blue, but it's bipolar. So seeing as like it's a button, we have to make sure that it's set the right way. And sorry, I do have a theme on some, but I'm pretty sure it should be something similar. So I basically, so I press mapping mode, this little blue thing, and then I click it, but then I hold the mouse button down. I'm dragging downwards, right? And that's while the arpeggiator's power is on. The reason I'm being so specific is if we do the other way around, it actually doesn't work because of the way like the bipolar signal. But then if I turn this off, it turns off, but you know, now it's working, but it's because it was, yeah, just be mindful of that, right? And then so that's going to turn on the arpeggiator. It's going to turn it on and off, right? So now we've got these 4 little dots here. And so this little collapsible 4 macro setup, a good way to use this would be actually so we've got shape, actually drag upwards because there's this chord stab thing at the top. So shape, drag upwards up to 16. And then, so what that's going to do is like cycle through like, wait. Oh, whoops, sorry. Yeah, so definitely go upwards. Get rid of this for now. And so next one is octave. Let's just have it set. So if you want to adjust these values, by the way, like while you're in mapping mode, you don't actually have to go like, oh shit, no, whoops, you can actually, so if we're in mapping mode and you're like, oh wait, it's set to 8th notes, I want it set to like, you know, 4th notes or half, right? You can actually just hold the Alt key. If you hold the Alt key, it's going to toggle mapping mode on and off, right? And then it'll go back on when you release Alt, but you can make adjustments if you need to just by holding the Alt key, right? So let's set the octaves. Yeah, so and also let's click this, the third one, and the rate. And lastly, let's use, I suppose we could use this to, yeah, for like the gate length, maybe. Might change my mind on that. And also escape will also exit mapping mode. So we got like, we got these things. But I want it to turn on the arpeggiator when I press the button. So okay, so that gate is a bit too reactive, so let's just take this up like quite a lot, so that way it's like it doesn't just stop the sound. Probably even more. Okay, so we've set up like arpeggiation, right? So what if like we want to make we want to transfer this, we want to do this but with strings and like kind of like interchange this, right? So what if we just like click the arpeggiator and you can hit Control or Command C, copy. Let's go head over to our strings and just click the instrument, right? Just click it and then just hit Control V, Command V. It's going to paste it, but it's going to plop it over there. For some reason, paste is always going to put it on the right-hand side of the device. We just have to drag it, not here, but before it has to go before the device. And then so what will happen, however, is because we've have all these mappings, now these mappings, because this is an exact copy of the arpeggiator that we did before. So this is going to actually affect the, look here, let me show you. So if I I guess the mappings didn't transfer in this case. However, if you do want them to transfer, a fast way to do this is actually by, so we can right click these settings here, right? And we hit copy modulation to all layers. Let's do it for all of them. And so what it's going to do is copy the modulations that we've set up here into this layer. And now it will but that one, we didn't actually copy this because this is set to the power button, right? This one here. Right, so let's actually rename this from up. We'll call this piano up. And we'll pop this up here. We'll hold Control, and then we're going to create another one. And we're going to rename the new one Strings Up. All right, so we're going to have to just check in the inspector. So these little buttons here will show you the mapping. So you can see this piano up is actually mapped to, if you ever get lost, you could just like hover the cursor over a mapping and it's going to tell you. You see instrument layer, piano arpeggiator on, off, right? And so that if you ever get lost, you can use the inspector to help you out. So we're going to have to map this to the strings arpeggiator. And so I have to just kind of play around with it so that when we press this button, the arpeggiator turns on like that, right? So let's have the strings arpeggiation on and the piano off, and we'll just like swap them around. Okay, well, that is quite a lot for like one video. There is, this is gonna be a video series, and we're just gonna gradually like work our way up. Before we finish the video, I will show you like a few things that you could consider. So we could use like random, for instance, so we got like one going down and the other goes up. Remember how I was talking about like bipolar like earlier? So it's referring to this kind of thing. So and then you could have like a chaos button that like turns the random on by like turning the amount from 0 to 100, but we won't get into that in this tutorial. But like lastly, I will say, like, if you remember how we clicked this device and we hit Control G to put it inside to create this layer, the same can be done for MIDI effects. So say we got like our, let's look at the piano, we click the piano up, we can hit Control G, and then it's become in a layer now. And so what we can do is actually press the plus button and then just hit OK, right? And what that does is it's created a layer underneath it. It has no effects, but listen now. So this is without the layer, and this is with the layer. Now that layer, because there's no note effects on it, it's just playing the progression, but this layer is still arpeggiating. So it's like, yeah, and we can do all sorts of things like add like note transpose on this, and create like another one, and then create like another one, but have it like arpeggiating, and so on and so forth. Right, so it can get very complicated, and like I said earlier, you're only really limited to your CPU, but I urge you, especially if you're new to this, you should probably just try and keep it simple. But yeah, I definitely encourage experimentation. But yeah, that's all for now. I'm going to make another one very soon. So thank you all for watching. If you like more videos like this, please comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Yeah, see you next time.